I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna. You know, you guys, we just happen to be the hosts here at the UK Health Radio Show, but we also happen to be the creators of the Cognomovement system. Speaking of which, we have a really good friend of ours and the program with us, Tiffany Barsotti. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you so much. Great to see and be with you guys.
You too. Hey, Bill, I'm going to turn over our introduction to you. Would you tell us how you met Tiffany in the first place?
Oh my God. You know, I am so excited to have Tiffany on. You know, Tiffany is just an angel, a joy, an amazing person with incredible gifts, like, you know, kind of the stuff you read about. A real life intuitive, born as a clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient being who never lost it, and a life story that I can't really, the whole story I can't get into, but you know, there's some episodes on Gaia you got to watch. Look her up on Gaia and watch some of them. It's fascinating stuff. But she is also probably the world's most foremost authority on a device called the BioWell, which has the ability to read your actual energy, the energy that is produced in all the meridians in your body, and it can interpret. They say that instead of things being the golden hour, it's like the golden year. It reads information before the problem presents itself. So she's an author and a teacher, and we just love her. And we're so excited to hear what she has going on. She has some things she's going to share with you that are information, especially if you've been through a lot of training, you're going to really be interested in the type of things she says. So take it away, Tiffany. Tell us about all of your latest work that you're doing now.
Well, wow. Something really amazing happened. Thank you, Bill. And it's great to be together with you and Liz again. It's been quite a while. Some really phenomenal reward happened that it doesn't always happen in one's lifetime. You know, sometimes we get ideas that come into us that are, you don't know if now's the time or if there will ever be a time. And when I was working on my master's thesis, and you mentioned that I had the clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentience, claircognizance, all of it, I call it clairoverwhelming. And because it was exactly that. And I actually did everything in my power to shut it down. And I caused myself a great deal of anxiety and OCD. And so that was something that I had to really get over in my life and teach myself a way of rewiring my nervous system. Now there are many teachers that are teaching methods for rewiring one's nervous system. So, but at the time I was very much on my own. And very long story short, I ended up, because I had really suppressed so much of this intuitive knowing and ways of perceiving, when it showed up that way, I knew when I got sick from it, from living across the street from Ground Zero. And as you said, that whole story, or majority of it, is on Gaia TV. But when I got sick, I had to really wrestle with the fact that I knew I suppressed my path. I knew I suppressed my purpose. But I didn't want to know that. That's why I call my story kind of the reluctant healer. And then I also, one of my teachers was Carolyn Mace, and another amazing teacher, Norm Shealy, amongst many other modern mystics. And, Carolyn Mace always said, this isn't a job I wanted. So I really identified with this. I don't really want to be doing this job, but nevertheless, when you're tapped, there are things that we just need to find our way into in our comfort zone. So when I got sick, I needed to get on my path. And what I ended up doing is going to study with Carolyn Mace and Norm Shealy. And like I said, many other modern mystics, Christine Page and Karen Cromasco, many other amazing healers. And I had these thoughts that were thinking me, that were my master's thesis, which is on the reticular activating system of the brain, the vagus nerve, and this little known chakra called the Alta Major chakra. Well, I intuited this information 17 years ago. I wrote my master's thesis 12 years ago, and I just got done doing a course on the Shift Network, amazingly, on this topic. Now, I thought first, like, why am I doing this work? It's so esoteric, and what good is it going to serve? And you know what? Potentially, I may not even see the benefits or what can happen in my lifetime. And that's very much a surrendered, I had to get to a surrendered place with it. And understanding that, okay, this work is out there now. I did the thing that I was being tapped to do. So just as to give a little vignette here for the listeners, one of the most important things I could ever stress to another human is follow the path. Whatever your path is, just find the way to the surrendered place of heart and mind to be able to get to it, because it really, that's how we're here to serve. And for those of us that, when we know that we're being tapped and we resist it, man, life does not get easier, it gets harder. And so I just want to say that was a turning point, a massive turning point.
Now
for me.
you were a music, high up in the music industry, living right across from the Twin Towers in New York when it all went down.
No, I was actually there at the second worst time, I say, because there was a lag when the buildings fell because of the planes crashing into it, and then when they did the cleanup. So I was living there in the only apartment building that was inhabited because the rent was cheap. And so I was there when the buildings were going through its cleanup.
Oh.
So it was certainly not ideal placement nor timing, but it was part of my wake-up call. So it was, yeah. And what I did in the music industry, I thought was important. And I think it was. What I was doing is, after I spent 22 years doing music management, managing artists and traveling and doing all of that world, I got into the digital space. And it's because I understood copyright law, and I understood publishing rights, and I understood all of those things, as well as I saw the future of music. And I saw how this was going to be, the jukebox in the cloud is what I called it. And, who knew this was way before iTunes or any of the things that, even before Napster, when this was happening. But as soon as things went digital in the industry, I knew that there was going to be a massive change, and I wanted to figure out a new digital economy. So I really thought that was my mission, is to figure out how every creative artist got paid equally. So you can imagine, like, the whack over the head when I thought I was doing my work, to then realize, nope, you haven't even begun. So you're going to make a complete left turn and go a totally different direction. And that's what happened when I ended up going into the healing arts. But I always knew that as a kid too. I just didn't want that job, that reluctant healer.
I think I, along with many of us in this space, this healing space, share that with you. probably knowing from a small child that that's who we were supposed to be, but not really wanting to dig in there. And I can attest it's really true. Until you go ahead and take the mantle you were given, it just gets more and more and more uncomfortable. And Bill and I are always saying that right now, we need everyone who's possibly available to step up and serve as healers. If they're willing and if they have the talent and the ability, you are desperately needed. And sometimes it's really just about putting that sort of, I hate the word ego, but putting sort of that, it's about me aside and simply allowing whatever your talent is to flow through you and to start working. Even if it's just like your next door neighbor or your cat, get in there and start the work. Now, with that being said, off camera, we were talking a little bit about one of your personal passions, which is personal self-integration. And we were talking about how so many people, speaking of the healing path, are diving in sort of blindly into healing methods like plant medicines. It has become really popular to do some, magic mushrooms or to do ayahuasca or other things, DMT and all of that. And a person who doesn't necessarily have any kind of background or platform to work from will have this experience, and then they don't have the support after to have any idea how to bring that into their life. So will you share a little bit about that with us as we kind of pull this thread through?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Liz, for bringing this up right now. It's such a hot topic. And what I actually just wrote down a term that just came to me right now, which is frustrated initiates or frustrated seekers.
Yeah.
That there's something more that we know that we need to be doing. And I totally agree with you. I see evidence for this all over as well, of all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And I think people are really feeling that they are being tapped in some way. Well, they need that portal sort of opened for them. And with the now in the use of plant medicines in ethnogenic properties and all of that, it's a beautiful thing. And First Nations people, as well as many cultures around the world, have been using this as a method, as a way of getting in touch with our spiritual nature for epochs. So this is nothing new. But of course, leave it to our Western mind and our Western world to want to speed things up.
Yeah.
And, I'm all for speeding things up because we are being fast tracked right now. We are absolutely, it's evident. And actually, just recently, in the last handful of months, Earth went on record for having the fastest spin that has ever been recorded since the spin of Earth has been recorded. So it's not just evident in our lives that time is speeding up. Astrophysics is actually, we're seeing it and we're feeling it. So yes, this intensity is really increased, as well as one's desire for a true transformation. And I just think that transformation without integration is just foolish. It's foolhardy. And well, what's going to be the plan? And a lot of people will talk integration, or we need a little integration time or whatever, and they may give you a breathing session or something like that. And I am not knocking any of this work. I think that if you're called to that path, and I have plenty of personal self-integration students and coaches in training, that is what they're doing, is helping to facilitate these transformative experiences, but really becoming integrated in our lives with. Don't just go for the transformation. Like, what is really going to change now in our everyday life as a result of something so gargantuan as the opening of our heart, just poof, or another, our third eye getting opened or something like that. I mean, we want to be careful about forcibly doing anything like that, even Kundalini yoga. I've written papers about this, scientific papers, and as well as for lay persons. And it's some of what I write in my book as well, that that is just dangerous. We don't just want to just use breath work and go forcibly open any of these energy centers. There's shadow aspects that we have the opportunity to get to know and learn about ourselves that have so much to teach us. And so the dark side is where we're opening up and doing and moving so fast and not doing enough integration. Are you guys seeing this as well in the world, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we know through our work is that when you go through a significant transformation, the world looks different.
Mhm.
And you as a human, if it's done correctly, you feel like a different person.
Mhm.
And then you go out into the world and everything feels a bit different and strange. For us, we notice that there's this period where a person feels lost, a bit lost, because
Mhm.
they don't know how to interact. Their internal reactions are not the same. Their perspectives are different. How they're receiving information is very, very different. And so they're not sure what to do with themselves. So let's take a quick break right at this point. We'll hear from the UK Health Radio Network. And when we come back, we'll talk about with Tiffany Barsotti, what can we do when we've had a big life transformation, maybe what we can do before and what we can do after. So UK Health Radio, take it away. And we're back. We're talking with Tiffany Barsotti. And right now we're talking about personal self integration. So what would you say, Tiffany, about, preparation for big transformation? We were talking about plant medicines and specifically. And then maybe what could happen after?
Good question. We want transformation. I mean, that's there. Actually, I say that, but a lot of people are uncomfortable with change at all. But it is the one constant in our world, of course. And for those of us that are healers, and what you guys both do with Cognomovement as well, is you're looking for the transformation. That's the reason that people are seeking out anything is the transformation. So really, the first thing is to be aware that there is something that needs to change in one's life. And the tipping point of what I find about who are the people that actually respond to the transformations that is going on in one's life are the people that are realizing that they're creating their own reality. There's the people that feel very much victim to their lives. And then there's the people that realize that, oh, wow, I'm playing a role here. And I need to be awakened to my own inner power and empowerment to be able to activate these innate properties for change in my life. So first of all is to identify, what transformation do I want? So much of what I find is that we're just sort of kind of led by our nose into something, or we might even be inspired by somebody else that has had an experience. And it's just like, oh, I want an experience like that too, with not giving a lot of forethought about what does it look like to invite a massive transformation or change in my life. Because oftentimes that can be very disruptive. It can mean new relationships. It can mean new job. It can mean like, oh my God, I don't know who I am anymore. And, so really understanding that those kinds of really serious existential questions get to come up. And this is part of what is meant at the temple of the oracle at the Temple of Delphi that says, know thyself and nothing in excess. Is really about the journey to know thyself is a transformational journey. So really, to answer that question is giving some forethought about what is it that I would really be allowing for a change in my life at this point. And then thinking about the integration of what that might look like. Now, we don't always know what the transformation is going to be. And in something specific to personal self-integration is understanding that we have more than just who we see in the mirror. We have a male self, a female self. We have a high self, or guardian angel, or higher soul, or solar angel, whichever. They're all kind of one and the same meaning to me. A mental judge self, an astral judge self, and a body self. And what we see in the mirror and who we're interacting with right now is really a collection of all of these selves, but who's doing the talking is the outer self personality. So if the outer self personality is going to perceive and do something and take action in the world, where let's say one of the subconscious selves doesn't like the idea of entering into a new relationship, doesn't like change at all, doesn't like to lose control of anything, no matter how it's perceived. Or, wow, what's going to happen if I enter into these unknown territories of emotions? And if I put my body in certain situations, if we don't have a harmonious relationship with these aspects of ourselves, it ends up being sabotage. And so then we get stuck again. And then we'll say, oh, well, I tried that and I tried that and I tried that. And nothing ever really changes or substantiates a change, lasting change in one's life. And I find that that's because we didn't have buy-in on these multiple aspects. The truth is we're all multiple personalities. It's just how well do we know them? And how much do we include them in our regular dialogue of life and saying, okay, I seek this transformation. We also have an inner child that plays a really important role. And am I ready to really step into this creative life? Am I ready to step onto that mantle that I know that I am here to do, but it's not totally clear to me about what that actually looks like or feels like?
I think what we've discovered is that until a person really experiences a transformation in our work, it's always at the level of the nervous system, that whole pattern that runs, which can run all the way back to birth or before birth, and certainly runs through every aspect of a life. We find that until they experience it, most people have no idea what it would look like. They say, I want everything to change. But the gift in the gargoyle is that when everything changes, guess what? Everything changes. Nothing happens in a vacuum, right? So a person will have this really major life, physical, spiritual shift. And they're expecting what they thought it would be is lightning and unicorn and the harps would start to play. And really what for most people with our work, they kind of, everything just slows down, gets really quiet, softens up. The world doesn't feel like it's intruding on their brain anymore. And it's almost like that feeling of going over a roller coaster right at the top where you're floating. Mm-hmm. And then what happens next, right? It goes down and there's all the screaming and the yelling. So I think that for most people, the extraordinary change that they're looking for is one of those things that they can't even imagine before what happens next. So is what you're suggesting is that something's put in place for them after, for what to do next. Yeah?
Correct. Yes.
So what would be step one? Let's say that somebody's out there and they've gone and they've had that ayahuasca trip or that DMT trip, and they saw a part of the universe or the world or themselves that they just were not prepared for, but they wanted it, they accepted it, and now they've come out and the world does look different. What do they do next?
Well, I think this is the question that ultimately they need to be asking themselves is, what is next in my life? What is it that I want now that I've had this experience, and to gently feel into what's the next breadcrumb? What is the next thing for me to follow? And then wait for that inspiration. What I have noticed is that there can be, it's not universal, of some impatience, like, wow, I've had this experience. And then, that's it. And we're like, oh, geez, that's really frustrating. That was life-changing and amazing. And I'm not a painter. I'm not going to just paint this stuff. This is that's not what I'm doing. So what am I doing with it? And there's a reason that patience is virtuous, is because it oftentimes these kinds of experiences adjust our value systems. And it does make us ask, well, what is next? And to really sit with that and be okay with whatever period of time it takes for that next breadcrumb to land. I always say that if we follow the breadcrumbs, we end up well fed. So just be patient and wait for the next thing to pop on the path. But if you go searching for the next trip and the next high or the next this or that's where it gets to be a little bit of a slippery slope. And if it's that you are wanting to encourage another experience, then let's not just be an experience junkie or a transformation junkie. Let us really step into what does it mean to really transform my life? Okay, what is the next little step I can make? Seeing that this is different now as a result of this experience. And you guys are going to be speaking with my husband, Paul Mills, and he's a scientist that wrote about his own spiritual transformation that he had, and a supremely existential question that he had after an experience. It was not plant medicine induced. It just happened in 2012 when really the gates opened for a lot of people to step into. He had an experience with the Galactic Center. And and hopefully you guys will get into that, so I'm not going to speak to it now. But the point is that he said, well, what am I doing as a scientist to help humanity step more into love and more of who they are? And so I think that's the deeper question that we need to take back to ourselves. What am I doing in my life that is honorific of the fact that I have a purpose and a plan, and it just may be, I might be in the blind spot of it. I'm not seeing it yet. So to sit in that discomfort a little bit is okay. Allow the patience, and then find that next breadcrumb that lands, at the same time understanding that our value system may be being adjusted. And that's the thing to really sit with.
I think this is really, really, really good advice. And something else I think people need to realize, you have a big experience. Many times it feels like the top of your head's blown off, you see the world in a new way. It's like that big wow moment. There's a lot of adrenaline involved, and you're just certain afterwards you're going to be able to sprout wings and fly. And then, like I said, there's, the world looks different and things are calm. That quickly can become your new normal, the new level of consciousness, the new way life is working out, and just speaking for my own self, I would get bored really quickly, thinking that the thing is that big transformation, and it isn't. It's the life that comes next. And the truest form of transformation actually raises your level of consciousness, your awareness, and now you exist at a new plane. So your advice of just kind of calming the heck down, see what comes next, see what you choose next. What thing comes along your path that you really choose instead of automatically respond to? You're now in a place where maybe you have a better ability to choose, more awareness to guide you. Take that next itty bitty step. I think that's amazing, amazing advice. So let's take a break right here, and we'll hear from the UK Health Radio Network. And when we come back, we'll talk more about personal self-integration with Tiffany Barsotti. UK Health Radio, take it away.
All right, and we're back. So, having somebody like Tiffany on the show is a real wonderful thing, in that we get some information that we didn't have before. And one of the things that I know everybody's really curious at the start of this is, wait a second, Alta Major Chakra. I ain't never heard of that. Where's that? What's that? What is that going on? So even for those who have studied a lot, hadn't really heard of it, don't know much about it. What is it? Where is it? What does it do? What does it have to do with integration? Tell us all about this.
Yeah. So the Alta Major is something to really behold in our esoteric physiology. And the esoteric physiology is that we have kind of our chakras. Our chakras are actually not in a physical location of our body, they're in the etheric body. So to back up for a moment, the auric field or biofield that is very present with all humans, and many could say living things, that there's a field. And so that field contains information. The chakras happen to be in the etheric field, which is about 2 to 4 inches off the body, kind of looks like a little glowing sheath around the body. Then you have the emotional body or astral body, and then you have the mental body. There are some cosmologies that have this a little bit named differently and all of that. And I recognize that I'm just going with my own personal experience as well as some of my studies. And then you have the mental body, and then you have the causal body. So at the furthest outstretch of your arms is where you really, what you have dominion, what you have say over is what happens in this inner space. So you mentioned earlier that sometimes people get into maybe even past lives, if you believe in reincarnation, or your lineage. If even we all come from, we've been on Earth's recycling program for at least 5 billion years. And so, or 4.8, whatever number is right anymore, I don't know. So we all have these constituents of where we're coming from, and this field contains a lot of information. So the chakras are in the etheric field. And the Alta Major chakra specifically lines up at the back head and in that kind of divot area at the base of the skull, at the top of the neck. And this is at the occiput for those people that know that term of their physiology or their anatomy. And so this is known in many cosmologies as the mouth of God. Well, what I find so fascinating about this chakra from a theosophical standpoint, and also Tibetan esoteric physiology, ancient Chinese, so the traditional system, medicine also looks at the Alta Major chakra. There are many names for it as well, but it's a minor of the throat chakra, which is so imperative right now for humanity. All of us, and I think this is why we're dealing with so many thyroid issues, so many throat, larynx, trachea, all of these things. We see it in the biowell. You guys see these same patterns coming off of everybody. I have not found one single person, me included, that is not having that pattern that we see in the biowell where it looks a little bit interrupted. Why? This is an area of transformation. This is the seat of where the higher mind is starting to really take root. What do I mean by higher mind? I mean, what mind are we thinking with? Are we thinking more from the place of our high self? Or are we thinking more from a place of personality that's not integrated with soul? And that's the work, by the way, that's also the work of personal self-integration, is to integrate personality and soul. It's also the nature of this work when we think about it from an esoteric and an exoteric physiology. Exoteric just means that it's widely available for people. Esoteric means that it was shrouded or veiled teachings. And so it's time, just in the same way that we said all hands on deck, it's time for humanity to really start making what this was esoteric into the exoteric and light up these areas that are little less known. There's one other thing I want to say that's very important before you ask me the next question, Bill, or we go into the next, wherever this takes us next, is the throat chakra is very much, it's the seat of where we might argue with divine will. So let's say we have this idea about, oh, I knew when I'll use myself as an example because it's top of mind right now since we were talking about it. I knew as a kid, I had been told and I knew it. I was a healer and a person that needed to be of service to others. Well, but I didn't want the job. So I spent like I said, I spent my life suppressing it. That really doesn't work out. And then ultimately to come around to what needs to be honored in our life. Okay. So that was me in argument from, I knew that there was a higher order of operation for me, but I wasn't willing. It took the spiritual 2x4 to wake my happy ass up and say okay, time to get on with it. And I still was reluctant. It still took me more time. But this is the seat of where we will argue with our divine will versus our personal will, which is the solar plexus. So we either operate in the lower solar, we operate from the solar plexus and lower chakras, which means that we need to have power control issues and things that are showing up, versus more of a surrendered place, which is where the heart gets involved. And that's the next major center that sits, of course, between the throat and the solar plexus. So for us to ignite the heart, that changes the properties of our throat chakra, turns on, helps to ignite the Alta Major, which is the mouth of God. We stop arguing. We start really surrendering into the path that we are here to honor and do in our lives. And then the rest of the head centers are also involved, of course, as well as all of the rest of the energy centers in the body being involved. So that was a long way to answer it, but that's also what I mean by higher mind.
So interesting. So tell us now, once this area, it sounds like there's as your heart opens, it has something to do with this Alta Major becoming active.
That is true. It is. Have you heard of this term called the Antakarana? Antahkarana.
I haven't.
Okay, so if you look up Antakarana, and in fact, I'm not a Reiki healer, but many people who are Reiki, there's actually a symbol for the Antakarana. And interestingly, when you look it up as far as a symbol, it looks like the swastika. It's not a swastika. It's sacred geometry that has to do with balancing masculine and feminine energy within ourselves, as well as the Antakarana getting anchored actually at the heart. And the Alta Major chakra is very much having to do with that alignment. The Alta Major gets opened and we get seated in our Antakarana. And that starts to build, the way I'm going to describe this is like fatter pipes to the divine. So we are able to strengthen and have more solidified our vertical connection versus the horizontal connection where we're kind of nailing ourselves to the cross, living in anxiety and fears and things like that. So the vertical connection is seeking something higher, as a higher order of operation. And that's where that Alta Major. So Bill, your question intuitively is spot on, that there's a definite connection to the heart and the heart center.
That's wonderful.
High heart, the high heart.
The high heart. And for everybody who's listening around the world, that is actually, it goes the opposite way. That, I'm going to butcher it up. The Anta, whatever she said, it goes the opposite way. It looks kind of like a swastika, but it's actually the opposite.
Turned, yes.
Yeah, and that is very ancient. I mean, this is predates, it's thousands and thousands of years old.
Yes. Actually, they don't even know the exact of it. In the same way in the flower of life, they don't know the date.
Yeah.
Exact date.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's so interesting. And when this happens, when this area becomes open. Tell me what, because you did your PhD, right? It was your part of your thesis for your PhD?
Master's thesis.
Master's thesis. Okay.
Before my PhD.
But you also have your PhD too.
Correct.
So anyway, what are the typical things that people experience when this area becomes active?
I can't say it's typical, but it is a higher consciousness.
Okay.
It's a higher awareness. Let's drop in right now and have that experience, to the extent that we can do this in 4 or 5 minutes. I have a gift for your listeners on my website that is an altar. I was divinely guided, and just I do as I told. When I am given guidance, I do as I'm told. And so this was an attunement, an Alta Major attunement. And that is a gift that I'm giving your listeners, and that's available on my website. It's not publicly available. It's only by the link that I've given you.
Because it's a radio, let's give everybody the link out loud, if that's okay, Tiffany.
Let's see, one moment. I think it is, yes, it's Heal and Thrive, HEALAND, Thrive, THRIVE.com/attunement gift. Attunement gift. ATTUNEMENT gift, all together.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's so kind of you. Thank you. All right. So you're going to walk us through a meditation.
Yeah, this is going to be very brief. This is not something how I would normally bring a person into the Alta Major. We're just going to ground and bring our awareness. Just bring our awareness. And what that does is sends a ping to the monad, which is a whole other conversation for us, that of our higher consciousness, to say, hey, I'm now aware of this place within me, so that I can have my dominion and attention, that I'm aware of you and you be more aware of me. So this kind of divine exchange, if you will.
Beautiful.
Okay. Beautiful. So allow your eyes to close. And before we go up, we must go down. So set your grounding. And really, really being aware of the ground happening not just at the feet, but higher up, more like your waist. And you can even ground your heart chakra. So you're bringing in the awareness to this beautiful root system that connects us and anchors us into our divine Mother Goddess Earth, our Pachamama. And with that brief connection, we just say thank you. And we are also aware that these roots have the ability to compost, to take things that do not need to be in our own recycling program, but can be utilized by Earth's energies and her ability to compost those things that have been running, that don't need to run us anymore. So with a breath there, move our attention to the heart center. And just a little bit above the heart, the physical heart, a few inches, we actually have the thymus gland in this area. And as we anchor our attention to the thymus gland, just offer it a little love and appreciation and gratitude. It's the basis of our immune system and our esoteric physiology. It's related to our high heart, the closest that we can imagine there energetically. And now allow your attention to go to your throat chakra. And we ask for our high selves, even if you feel you don't have a relationship with your high self, whatever you could imagine it to be, you ask for a balancing between the throat, the heart, the crown, the base chakra. These are actually triangular setups in the system of esoteric physiology. Becoming aware of this area in the back head, the Alta Major. And the alignment is a little higher because it's in the back head, but the energetic alignment is to the throat. Just build in your mind's eye, in a felt sense, whatever the way is that you perceive energy. And if you feel you don't perceive energy, just bring your attention there. There's no performance anxiety needed. We are just making our esoteric physiology more exoteric, more available to us. And now being aware of a center that is in the mid-forehead. There is a relationship to the third eye. And this connection. And we're just giving loving attention to these areas. Just knowing that they exist begins an opening. And then just easily let that go, bringing your attention to the crown chakra and all the way to the base, to the root chakra, at the perineum or your sits bones area. And allow the ground to get set again. And give yourself a little hug, a little appreciation hug, a gratitude hug. We're in the season of giving gratitude. Let's give it to ourselves first. We have this beautiful energetic physiology that is there supporting us. And with a deep breath, allow your eyes to open and be even more centered than maybe you were, and more grounded.
Wow, Tiffany, that was really gorgeous. Thank you so much. And with that being said, we've completely run out of time. So I want to say thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. As always, thanks, Bill McKenna. Reach out to Tiffany at healandthrive.com. And for everybody in UK Health Radio land, be safe and be well. And we will see you again next week. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.